So back home, we have a proverb
Yeah.
that says, if you go north
Mm-hmm.
and keep going north,
Mm-hmm.
eventually you head south. But if you go east and keep going east,
Yeah.
you'll never go west.
When you say back home, like what part of home is this?
Yes.
Is it where the people that don't know north, south, east, and west actually reside? So if I go north, I'll eventually go south. But if I go east, I'll never go west.
That's right.
Brother, like the people that are watching,
No one's watching it because we're not live yet.
yeah, well, if they were, they would know that you're not very smart.
And on that note, let's start the show.
What up, guys? I am Sarah Garvey. Welcome back to the People's Opinion. It's been a couple of weeks. We've been gone for a couple of weeks, but we're back. Don't worry about it, guys. We're back. I'm here, right? We're going to be having a great show today. As you probably heard, someone who's also here with me who tries to give out some kind of wisdom, but ends up sounding not the smartest is Jesse. He's actually behind the camera. We can't put him in front of the camera. It can't be done. It can't be done. If you guys saw him, you'd probably stop watching. I won't lie. But love to you, Jesse, man. Love to you, brother.
I've got a web call in a minute, so I need to step out for a sec. Sorry.
Guys and girls, listen, today we are going to be going into a few subjects, but the main core piece of the live stream today, the main core piece of the video today, we're going to be talking about African spirituality and Abrahamic religion. It was something that was requested, given my history in speaking about spirituality and religion. And it's something that I thought I'd go into because I actually got my hands on a very interesting video from a woman by the name of Dr. Kanyisile Litchfield. We'll be going into that. You guys probably can't pronounce that. But before we do go into that, guys, okay, before we do go into that, I want to talk about depression and manhood. It's kind of taken the Western world by storm, I would say, male depression and manhood. And it's something that it needs to be spoken about. And I think one of the main reasons for the rise in the quote unquote manosphere and the quote unquote red pill space is probably because a lot of men are feeling low, they're feeling depressed, and the suicide rates for men have been skyrocketing during these days and times. And a lot of the time I realize and have realized that men need a space to kind of express themselves and just be men in a space where they don't feel attacked, where they don't feel like they can't be men, where if they do show a little bit of vulnerability, that it won't be used against them. I think a lot of the time men are reluctant to be vulnerable in front of women because a lot of the time when men are vulnerable in front of women, it gets used against them in a fight, in an argument, whatever. A lot of men have had it done to them. So I want to kind of talk about the rise in the quote unquote manosphere and the male leaders. And there's a video that I came upon by a comedian by the name of Jimmy Carr. It's a British comedian. He was interviewed by Stephen Bartlett. Some people know Stephen Bartlett. He's a big interviewer, another UK interviewer. But Jimmy Carr is kind of known for his comedy over here. He's known for his comedy. And what I saw with this interview is that there's a side to Jimmy Carr that I had never seen before, because if you guys want to know offensive comedy and you don't know Jimmy Carr, you might want to YouTube some offensive Jimmy Carr jokes. But in this video, he kind of touches on some things that I wanted to speak about. So we're going to speak about them.
Yeah, man.
Jesse, could we put that first video on, please?
Lovely. Here we go.
Yourself too much. You last time we spoke on the podcast, you talked about, I would say, yeah, sorry, that feels
to me,
What's going on here? I know what's going on here.
Don't know what's going on there.
Give it 1 moment. I know exactly what's going on here. This needs to go. No, that's gone.
He knows exactly
it's a
what's going
disease.
Let's go back here.
You know, depression is
Oh, yeah,
essentially
there you
thinking
go.
about yourself too much. You last time we spoke on the podcast, you talked about.
I would say, yeah, sorry, that feels to me maybe a little bit too harsh, because I think people suffer with depression, and it's a disease, and it's incredibly serious. And we think of suicide as being something that stands alone. It's not. It's a symptom of a disease called depression, right? So it's the permanent solution to a temporary problem. You don't want to feel this way anymore, but actually you don't want to feel nothing anymore. You'd like to feel better. So it's that thing of like, I don't think we talk about it enough, but I think that thing of, thinking about yourself all the time, I think it just can lead to a melancholy, a sadness. I think depression is maybe a slightly separate thing. Not to nitpick, but it feels like that's a disease.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of sadness in the world. And you're lucky if you're sad. Because if you're sad, it's circumstantial and you can do something about it. Are you depressed because you have a serotonin imbalance in your head and it's a heritable trait? Or are you sad because your life hasn't worked out the way you want it to work out? Well, if that's the case, the latter, you're in luck because you can change that.
It does feel like there's a bit of a crisis going on within young men at the moment. And
Can't
Sorry,
change.
I had us muted for a sec. Sorry. I had us muted for a sec.
Oh, you
While
had
the video's playing.
You had muted. What I was saying before, bro, do your job, bro.
Sorry, I had to mute when the video's playing.
You didn't actually keep me unmuted when the video plays.
Okay, cool.
So I can say something. Yeah. But what I was saying is that a lot of the time is that people think that when they are in a sad and down state, that it's going to be like that forever. Hence the reason why so many men commit suicide. But what we need to understand, and it's hard because I know someone that was quite close to me that actually committed suicide. This is why I'm speaking about it. They can't see anything else but their sadness. And so when you cannot see anything else but your sadness, you feel like the way out is to end it all. But you just don't know what the next week is going to be like, what the next day is going to be like. You kind of tell yourself what it's going to be like, and then you get into a rut of it being that way because you told yourself it was going to be that way. So yeah, what he said there resonated quite a bit to me, because he said, you are in the position to actually change it. Can we continue that, Jesse?
Let's go.
going on within young men at the moment. And I think your new show on Netflix shines a light on many of the difficulties that young men are facing. I was really excited to talk to you about this particular topic because I've been trying to arrive at a position myself on why so many young men appear to be lost and suicidality has increased. And there's, these new masculine influences or masculine influencers that are really rounding up this cohort of young men.
Who are we talking about? Andrew Tate?
Andrew Tates of the world.
Well, Andrew Tate's interesting, isn't he? Because who made I think John Mulaney made the observation, Trump is a poor person's idea of what a rich person looks like. Yeah, I've got gold taps. And I think sort of Andrew Tate is like a 14-year-old boy's idea of what masculinity might look like. Like it's really, and of course, nature abhors a vacuum. And there's a real vacuum for elders. Like we don't learn how to shave from our fathers. It's a YouTube video. And so you lose something in that bonding. So there's a big bit in the new.
I think that is something that really needs to be spoken about. The lack of fatherhood. which is leading to the lack of manhood, which is leading to the lost feeling that so many young men have. He said that we used to learn to shave from our fathers, and now we learn to shave from a YouTube video. We used to learn to put on a tie because of our fathers, and now we learn that from a YouTube video. So there's a disconnect between the younger generation and the older generation. And I think the younger generation are now being taught via the social media game. They're being taught via the social media videos. They're not being taught by people that are hands-on with them. And I think that is one of the main reasons why the people like Andrew Tate, like he spoke about, can rise to fame, because as well as Andrew Tate being a man and standing on everything that he says, he's a father figure to a lot of these boys. Can we continue that, Jesse?
Yeah, buddy. Oops. There we go. Here we go.
It's not, it's a symptom of a disease called depression, right? So it's the permanent solution to a temporary problem. You don't want to feel this way anymore. I got gold taps. And I think sort of Andrew Tate is like a 14-year-old boy's idea of what masculinity might look like. Like it's really, and of course, nature abhors a vacuum. And there's a real vacuum for elders. Like we don't learn how to shave from our fathers. It's a YouTube video. And so you lose something in that bonding. So there's a big bit in the new show where I give a young guy, an audience member, a pretty tough time. Like we have the talk and I give them advice on how to be with a woman. And I'm not wrong about anything. It's really funny and it's really rude, but I'm not wrong about stuff. It's about consent, and I think it's really good because I've sugared the pill of the message because people don't want to talk about it. People go, it's obvious what consent is. Yeah, not to 17-year-old boys or girls. It's like, actually, what does that look like and how should that be? So it's a really fun routine. It's a really fun routine to perform and to write.
What is it to be a man these days? Because it's quite confusing in terms, even the conversation around like chivalry and understanding,
Well, people talk about toxic masculinity and easy fix. Be a gentleman, be a mensch. That's it. This is done. Be a gentleman, be a mensch. A gentleman is never rude by accident. It's Christopher Hitchens' line. Great. I don't know. I mean, my thing about young men today, if I was going to give young men advice, it would be get the right drugs and the real thing, right? In real life. Live in real life, right? So why young men are obsessed by video games, right? Obsessed. They're spending hours and hours and hours online playing video games. Why? Well, that's a proxy for career. Right? Video games. You think about the levels of video games and what people do on video games. That's a proxy. That's like it's a substitute for the career that they're not having.
Right.
And then they spend a lot of time, fapping to Pornhub or YouPorn or whatever. And that's a proxy for sex. And my thing would be, George Orwell wasn't right. Our power won't be taken away from us by some authoritarian master. We're going to give it away for cheap dopamine.
Right.
And the cheap dopamine of video games and online porn and living online is getting in the way of real life. So it's risk, right? That's what we're not allowing young people to do, because we're saying to young people, you can't take risks in real life. We're helicopter parenting. We're not giving them the freedom. How much freedom should you give a kid? As much as they can cope with, right? 14-year-olds used to be babysitters. They now need babysitters.
Ooh.
That's not good, right? So you should allow them more freedom in the real world, because otherwise, the only place they get freedom is online. And no freedom in the real world. You're not allowed to go to the park and hang out, but you're allowed to do whatever you want online. Well, that feels like a very bad social experiment. That feels like a bad idea.
Wow. It resonated with me. 14-year-olds used to be babysitters, and now 14-year-olds need babysitting. I've got an 11-year-old boy. And it's kind of true what he said. I try to give my boy as much man talk as I can to kind of, help him develop himself as a man. But the 14-year-olds in the UK and also around the Western world, in the UK, they run around with knives. You know, they're stabbing each other up. They don't understand the severity of life. Life is very flippant. And so when you have that mentality, you don't care about your own, you don't care about other people's. There's definitely a disconnect right now with the younger generation and the older generation. And I think that's what's leading to the lost feeling of so many young boys out there. And it's a reason why so many young boys don't know how to interact with other people. They don't know how to interact with themselves. And so they just interact online, and online becomes their life. This is why part and parcel of being online, there's this thing now called cyberbullying, because you can used to be bullied in real life now. You bullied in real life. Now you get bullied online. And it's like, that must be life then, because that you can only get bullied in your real life. But for you to be cyber bullied and you to be taking that on, and then some people committing suicide from it, that must really be your life. And so I think it's a shame that the disconnect from, I guess, the media world to the actual social world is quite huge now, where people spend such a large proportion of their time online and thinking that that is life. What do you think about that, Jesse?
I think you hit it on the head.
Hitting it on the head.
Yeah. Jimmy Carr is a lot wiser.
He's a lot wiser than I thought, bro. That's what I was saying.
But then you realize that a lot of comedians are actually quite intelligent.
Dave Chappelle.
I saw him 2 days ago
Where?
in Shepherd's Bush.
Oh yes, he's over here doing.
I saw him 2 days ago.
Yo,
that was crazy.
But yeah, I think comedians are. I think comedians are like they're the mouthpieces that people can't. They're the mouthpieces of the world that people can't say. You know, so so the way in which they view the world, they can actually break the world down and actually make it funny. But they are quite intelligent people, and Jimmy Carr showed himself to be quite intelligent, man.
100%.
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that, guys.
I've been seeing clips of Jimmy Carr, like those clips there.
Yeah.
And I kept saying to myself, "Oh, that man looks like Jimmy Carr."
Because he's lost weight, hasn't he?
He's lost weight and he's gotten older.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was him.
You didn't know it was him?
I was like, he looks like him, sounds like him.
Yeah, man. Guys, I just want to say to anyone dealing with depression, like I said, I had somebody that I knew that actually took their life because of it. And anyone out there dealing with it, I would say, so cliche, isn't it? Speak to someone. I know when you get into your own world, into your own head as a man, that can just be it. And a lot of the time when it comes to committing suicide, when women commit suicide, it's normally a cry for help. When because they don't really go through with it statistically, but when men decide to commit suicide, they normally go through with it, and they normally kill themselves and normally end their lives. So it's very sad. So guys, listen, try and find someone to speak to, and it's serious out there, and you guys learn to take care of yourself and kind of put yourself first, which is why I think this manosphere space is needed. I think the quote unquote red pill space is needed. However, I do think, I'm not going to lie to you guys, right? I know that was serious, but guys, I need to speak to you. I need to speak to the guys, Jesse, man. Mm-hmm. Guys, when this red pill manosphere space started, it started for men to speak as men, amongst men, and talk about the things that men wanted to speak about. That's why it started, okay? Men weren't being spoken to. Well, sorry, men were being spoken to, but they weren't speaking because they kept a lot of the stuff inside here and inside there. Men were not speaking about their relationship woes. Men were not speaking about their court woes. They weren't speaking about their family court woes. They weren't speaking about their co-parenting woes. And so what the manosphere red pill space became was a space for men to speak about men stuff. And I'm sad to say that I think the manosphere space right now is a space for men just to dump on women.
Oh no.
That's what I think it's become. It's become a space where a lot of men just feel the need to shit on women. Now, are there shitty women out there? Guys, we already know they are. We already know there are. But when it comes to this podcast game, podcast after podcast is using the format of inviting bimbos who don't have two brain cells to rub together anyway onto a panel, only to ask them questions that they know they're not going to know the answer to. And for the men to feel more quote unquote masculine and more quote unquote domineering because he could show that these women aren't shit. Guys, listen, if anyone knows as a man what it's like to be challenged, okay, men challenge themselves. There's no need to invite a 5-year-old onto a basketball court when you're LeBron James and dunk on him and then say, look, I dunked on him and I won. It's like, of course you were going to win, right? Because you invited a 5-year-old onto a basketball court and you're LeBron James. And that's what it seems like a lot of the manosphere space has become. It's become a space where they invite these dumbass bimbos on and then just dunk on them. Are you seeing it too, Jesse, or is it just me?
It seems that way. It does seem that way.
It seems that way. And I'm just saying, guys, look, men need to challenge themselves. And a lot of the women that I see on these podcasts are they're not challengers. I'm not even gonna lie, they're not challengers. They're bloody idiots, okay? They're dumbass OnlyFans models or Instagram baddies, and they ain't got two brain cells to rub together. And actually inviting them onto your podcast to actually speak about something legitimate is just dumb. They don't know anything. So yeah, I just wanted to get that one off my chest, and I want to get one more thing off my chest before we get into the meat of this show. Right, the podcast game again. The podcast game, when it comes to male-female relationships, a relationship podcast, there's an element, and there's an element that a lot of the guys are missing. Right, if I was a man, which I am, who from time to time said, if I said this to a woman on the podcast, I said, oh yeah, I'm a man. I'm a heterosexual man. You're a heterosexual woman. Yeah, okay. Well, from time to time, I like to get my dick sucked by a man.
Whoa.
Exactly. There you go, Jesse.
Then you are gay.
Right. But a lot of these women who sit on these podcasts now that are talking to men about heterosexual relationships are women who get their pussy sucked by another woman. Or a sucking another woman's pussy. Now, do you see your reaction that you had there, right? That, oh, you're just gay, right? A woman wouldn't listen to me if I sat down there and said, oh, I'm going to talk to you about heterosexual relationships, but I like to get my dick sucked every now and again by a man. Yeah. But we sit down there and listen to women saying that.
That's true.
And I'm like, no, you don't get to listen. Respectfully, ladies, if you're bisexual, respectfully be bisexual, but you don't get to tell me as a heterosexual man about male to female relationships. You don't get to do that. And I think a lot of the time, men are entertaining women who are compromised, okay? They are compromised by other women, which is a lot of the reason why, I've come to this conclusion, I'm doing a little rant now, but it's a lot of the reason why when men say, look, I'm going to talk man stuff and we're talking about man stuff and blah, blah, blah. And women say, oh, well, if you're gay, then say so. Well, if you guys should just be together then. And it's like, the reason why women are saying that is because they're judging us as men by their standards. When women get angry and upset at men, they go there to women. That's what they do. I don't know if you guys have seen the trend, but a lot of women go to other women when they get upset at men. They got 2, 3, 4 babies by men. They've had failed relationships. All of a sudden, they get old, they shave off the side of their head, and then all of a sudden, right, they're lesbian. And you're like, yo, where the hell did that come from? Like, you weren't lesbian before. No amount of men who are heterosexual, who don't like women who have had failed relationship after failed relationship, is gonna become homosexual. Jesse, is that what we're gonna do?
No.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. And so men are consistently listening to women who are compromised mentally. So we can't have these conversations. I'm not having a conversation with a bisexual woman about heterosexual relationships. I'm just not doing it. Respectfully, if you want to be bisexual, that's absolutely fine. Okay, that's absolutely fine. But me as a man, I ain't listening to you. You're compromised. You like to lick a woman's vagina from time to time and have yours licked by another woman. I ain't listening to you. You're gay. Go be gay. It's just my rant.
Go be gay.
Go be gay.
By the way, so some of the some of the viewers are saying that what you're talking about has nothing to do with the title of the show.
I know. I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it. We're getting there now.
It's been 25 minutes and we're not there yet.
We're just getting them in. Do you know what I'm saying? We're getting them in.
Okay, cool.
We're getting you guys in. Don't worry, but we're getting to it now. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesse, all you viewers out there, black people apparently now, right, are here to make white people feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you know that? Yeah, we're here to make white people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
In all essence of the word, apparently, it's gone to Hollywood now, and Hollywood have decided that they need to make a film about black people making white people feel comfortable. And I just thought it was interesting because it leads me on to the meat of the show that you guys you want to speak up, that you want to hear about. There's a video there, Jesse. Can we play that last video there so you can actually see what I'm talking about?
The last one.
The last one.
Okay.
Walk through a room full of white people was the most painful thing I've ever seen.
Excuse me. Sorry.
I don't want to take you to a job interview.
There's a recruiting class starting right now, and we got to get you in it.
Welcome to the American Society of Magical Negroes.
I don't really understand.
It's easier said. What's the most dangerous animal on the planet?
Shark.
White people, when they feel uncomfortable. White people feeling uncomfortable precedes a lot of bad stuff for us. That's why we fight white discomfort every day. Because the happier they are, the safer we are.
The name needs a little updating, maybe like magical black people, or I guess that doesn't have the same ring.
You ready?
Oh, wow.
Your first client is a Jason Munn. His morale is far too low.
Hey.
Hey.
Darn it. I was hoping there was a station right next to him.
Oh, is this one spoken for?
No.
Yeah, it's actually fun and weirdly relaxing. It's like being a secret agent with none of the danger.
Hey, I'm Lizzie.
Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you.
She's great.
Yeah, she's cool.
You kidding? Come on, man. She's smart and funny.
I know what you were doing going on about her. You're trying to set us up.
No, that's not what I was doing.
You cannot have a relationship with Lizzie now. Because if you don't put Jason first, everyone's magic will fail.
I've always felt like it's my job to make white people feel comfortable, and here it literally is. But maybe it shouldn't be.
I got a great plan to ask her out, but I'm gonna need your help.
Do you think you could, like, work your magic?
Hey, is you talking about me?
Hey.
Oh my God. Wait, are you?
Someone defied the society. Who was it?
You didn't let her go like I told you. If you interfere with her or your client, you could have your memory erased. You won't even remember she existed.
Even though we might never see each other again, I need you to know that what we had was real.
I'm curious to see how you gonna make it out of all this.
It's one of the weirdest films that I've seen come out, the American Society of Magical Negroes, where Negroes are actually entrusted with trying to make white people feel comfortable. So what I decided to do today is to make white people feel very uncomfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to make white people feel very uncomfortable today by talking about African spirituality.
Lovely.
And by talking about something that a lot of makes black people uncomfortable. Also, it's my experience that African spirituality, when it comes to the world, has kind of been demonized, and it's kind of been looked upon in a way which says that black people can't be spiritual by themselves with their own spiritual systems. And if they do have their own spiritual systems, and obviously it's black magic, or it's voodoo, or it's witchcraft,
Juju,
or it's witch doctorism, or something bad is coming from that. So I want to challenge that narrative. I want to challenge the narrative that says that black people can't be spiritual, that black people don't have a spiritual system. From my research, I research history, and I have researched African history, did it for a decade, maybe over a decade. What I found was that African people have always had spiritual systems that have always benefited them. I argue that African spiritual systems benefited them. And as soon as Africans took on European or Arab spiritual systems, they started working against African benefits because Africans had someone else in their psyche as God. And if you have someone else in your psyche as God, then subconsciously and sometimes consciously, you look at that person as God. I think Africans need to learn to have African people in their psychology as God. And maybe, just maybe, they may start treating African people better, black people better than what they are treating them. Could you imagine if God was a black man, how white people would treat black people, brother?
Better.
I would say so,
Mm-hmm.
because they could see God in us and we could see God in them. So today I'm going to challenge that narrative that black people don't have their own spiritual systems. So we have a few videos. There's a woman by the name of Dr. Kanyesile Litchfield. She is a South African doctor. And to me, I think some of the stuff that she's been saying in a recent interview really does need to go viral. So I decided to go and speak about it.
I feel like this is the third person you've had us play a clip of who is South African.
Is it who? Who was it?
There was the other guy. I know for sure there's
Oh, you're talking about Julius Malema?
Yeah, I feel like there's one more, but I can't remember.
Listen, man, South African people are beautiful people. I'm just going to say, like, I think South African people are beautiful people. I think South Africa and East Africa is where the most beautiful women reside. That's just me. That's just me, guys. You can have your women from where you have them from, but East Africa, South Africa, women, they're the most beautiful. But let's get into the first video. The first video right there, Jessie. Let's see what she says.
Economic system, and once we use the word social, we include all other facets of society. Which would be, I think the first thing I would have is colonialism was a system, socio-economic system, and once we use the word social, we include all other facets of society.
Can you get me out of that?
Which would be your political, your spiritual, your education, your infrastructure. So colonialism was a system, and you can't impose a system externally on a people who were the first race on earth, who already by that time had systems that had been running for thousands of years. So you can't dismantle those systems unless you demonize them, one. Two, you also can't infuse your system if you are piecemeal about it. So colonialism was a total destruction of the socio-economic systems they found here, in African spirituality being one of the social ones. What effect did it have? That's $1 million question. Let me start by saying the fact that Easter, which we just came from, Ramadan, are all public holidays in Africa, but Africa Day is not, I think, except in 4 or 5 countries. I speak under correction between the 4 or 5, but it is not more than 5. Even in my own country, South Africa, it's not a holiday. In Kenya, it's not a holiday. Says to me that we are first Muslims and Christians before we are African. So what effect did colonialism have? A thoroughgoing effect. They managed to make you an African. If the day that celebrates your being, who you are, it's just a normal day, but a day that celebrates 2 religions that came through colonialism are holidays. Right there, I can pack and leave this interview. You know, I'm done. I've just said a mouthful. Why is it a social? Oh, here's another disclaimer. Of the 54 African countries, there's only one country where African spirituality can officiate the opening of parliament. Opening of parliament is a big ceremony in all the countries. It's awaited for, it's publicized on television. And in all 53 countries, African spirituality would never be given the platform to officiate over opening of parliament. It's either Islam or Christianity, or they interchange depending on the countries. So it's only in South Africa where African spirituality can officiate an opening of parliament. I think it's only in South Africa where African spirituality is not regarded as witchcraft. It's a spirituality. That's just what it is. I mean, we have also a former British colony, first French or Dutch even at a certain time, but the English have had us the most. So like all the other countries, it is struggling to breathe and survive. against Christianity, against Islam. We have an Indian population, against Hinduism even. So I think the effect it has had is immense. One, they've managed to convince us that everything that's African spirituality is witchcraft. Now, my daughter normally says, we must decolonize language. And for a long time, I didn't take it seriously until I had to analyze the word witch doctor. I don't know which language you speak. Well, in South Africa, we have 9 official African languages, but we have more because some have not been captured. And I speak, read and write 7 of them. The 8th, I can hear broken speaking. So I can tell you in the African languages I've come across, I'm sure even yours, you'll tell me which one your language is. For us, a witch, umthakathi, that is Zulu, Ndebele, Swati. In Xhosa is igqwirha, and then a healer, that is a doctor, inyanga, or Xhosa people will say ugqirha. Now, I can't tell you that in my languages we have something called inyanga mthakathi or igqwirha gqirha. You are either or. You either heal or you witch and you kill. You can't mirror the two. But they've given us that name and it has stayed through colonialism. We call anyone that's practicing African spirituality, healing, we call them witch doctors. Now, I don't know, what is it we say they are doing? Are they witching or are they doctoring? Because you cannot do both. So that for me, as an example, just tells you everything. The negativity that we have towards African spirituality.
We're gonna continue. She touched on so many things there. She spoke about the decolonization of language, and I think a lot of the time when we speak other people's languages, we don't understand that we're tied and bound by other people's ways of thinking. When we speak English, which we do, we are tied and bound to a way in which English people think and the way English people describe things. Now, what she said is that in the South African language, witch and doctor do not go together. They are separate. You either witch or you either doctor. But in the English language, they've been brought together to create something called a witch doctor, which doesn't actually correlate to the actual people that they're talking about. And the thing is, I've spoken about this on so many different occasions when I was speaking about religion, when I was at Speaker's Corner speaking to religious people. And I spoke to a few people, and I did say that even when it comes to language, when it comes to decolonization of language, let's talk about the first people that they speak about, called Adam and Eve. They say that in the beginning there was Adam and there was Eve. It makes absolutely no logical sense whatsoever to call the first people on the planet Adam or Eve. Why? Because the names Adam or Eve were not even in linguistics. According to all genetic scientific data that we have, Africans are the first people, namely the Koshian people of South Africa, which speak in cliques. They speak in a lot of cliques. Etymology has shown that people that speak in cliques have the oldest languages on the planet. So how now can the first people who were African be running around with names that didn't even exist up until 100,000 or 200,000 years after the existence of the first people? It makes absolutely no sense. But we are supposed to take on that spiritual system as African people. As Black people, we're supposed to take on a spiritual system that doesn't make sense logically. When you just start at the beginning, in the beginning there was. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Whose beginning are you speaking about? Because you're not speaking about the actual beginning. Because if you're speaking about the actual beginning, where actual people were, you would speak about the African people. But these religions fail to do that. These religions put themselves and their names, Adam, Eve, Moses, Noah, Abraham, Jesus, Muhammad, all of these people who are non-African people at the beginning. And they expect other African people to take these things on as fact. And the bottom line is, African people do. They take this on as fact, as if they weren't the first. And when she said that, you know, African peoples were the first people and they already had spiritual systems, she's absolutely right. Whose systems are we talking about here? Whose story are we talking about here? We can't be talking about the actual factual story. Because if we had the actual factual story, guys, the first man and woman would probably be called Nwazabele or something, right? That's what it would be factually, because they would have African names. Now, shout out to my South African people. I don't know the language. I just clicked like that to make it sound like something. I apologize. I don't mean to offend. But it makes sense. It would be closer to that. It wouldn't be Adam and it wouldn't be Eve. But let's continue on, Jesse. As a matter of fact, before we get to that, what's the comment saying?
Harry Flashman said, I don't see why monotheism or Abrahamic religion is better or more important than any belief systems.
I actually agree. I don't think any system should be more prominent over another one. But like I said, when I spoke about Cerberus a few weeks ago, Abrahamic religions are the most arrogant. They're the most arrogant of the religions, hence the reason why they're constantly fighting with each other. That's why the Muslims fighting the Christian and the Christians fighting the Muslim and the Jews fighting the Muslim and the Muslims fighting the Jew. They're arrogant. When you put three arrogant people in a room, you're going to get a fight. It's just what's going to happen. And so the Hindus aren't fighting, you know, the Buddhists aren't fighting, I don't know, the Sikhs aren't fighting, but, you know, the Abrahamic religions start fighting because they essentially are arrogant, egotistical people. Any more, Jesse? Anyone else before we get to the second video? Okay.
Ash, rise of indigenous spiritual beliefs are on the rise. Once
agree.
Sorry, they keep moving. The golden era will reign once again once those lot in the Middle East wipe each other out.
Interesting.
I didn't read that comment before. I decided to read it out
loud. Interesting.
I'm glad I read it out loud.
You're glad you read it out loud?
Yeah, for sure.
The thing is, Cerberus has always tried to kill itself. What did I say last time? The Abrahamic religions have always tried to kill themselves. They've always tried to kill each other. That's just what they do. If you become part and parcel of the system, you will be part and parcel of that system, and you will also want to try and, you know, be better than or kill the other people. That's just exactly what they do. African spiritual systems don't do that. I don't know that ancient Indian systems do that. I don't know that ancient Chinese systems do that. But I think Dr. Kanyasile goes into that in the next video. Jesse, can we actually play the next video, please?
By how, when I say I'm not a Christian, I'm in African spirituality, people quickly say, do you really want to declare that out loud? And I say, why shouldn't I? They say, then people think you're a witch. I said, well, I know I'm not a witch. They can think whatever they think. They're colonized. I'm not colonized. So I think I'll stop here to allow you to come back. So that's a conversation. There's a good and bad for any system. So when the British left, power was then handed over to the small elite, the Afrikaners. I mean, it's the same system they've done in all the countries. They choose what they think is the most docile of the nation groups that are there, because I don't even buy the word tribe or ethnicity. We'll get to it. I call them nation groups. So they look at the most docile and they will leave power in the hands of those people because they want neocolonialism to continue. So with us, they found their docile group, which was the Afrikaners, who really are a mixture of the French, Huguenots, the Dutch, the Germans, and whoever else came there. So that's why you don't find Africans outside of South Africa. It is strictly South African because they came there and reinvented themselves. So they have nowhere to go. South Africa is just the beginning and end for them. So they left power in their hands, system called apartheid. And what apartheid did for us that was good, that I'm only appreciating now, is, I don't know, they thought maybe they are punishing us or they are keeping us in ignorance. But under apartheid system, I did everything in my mother tongue until the last year of primary school. So I did English as a language, but not as a medium of instruction. Then your last year of school, you start doing things in the English as a medium of instruction, right up to high school. So, see, this is how I say this. This is a trio. African spirituality, unlike religion, is practiced through the culture.
Mm.
But language is the vehicle of the culture.
Hey.
So for us Africans, the language, the spirituality, and the culture form a triangle that goes together. One feeds off of the other. So the fact that we kept those languages throughout primary school, and then at high school you had to do it as a mother tongue, and if you failed the mother tongue, you couldn't pass grade 12 for what they call matric. Now, because of that, we kept the language, which means that's the vehicle of the culture. Now, within the culture is the spirituality. So that trio was complete. So even up to university, you have, in my time, you have people who did BA in Xhosa, who did BA in Zulu. So it helped force us to keep the culture and to keep the spirituality. I think that's just about what I could say, because otherwise, what makes us distinct from the others? We're all colonized the same. As I say, we're a former British colony. But I think that keeping of the language, because I've actually looked at a lot of African countries through which I go. The mother tongue ends in primary school. I mean, in places like Tanzania, there's not even a mother tongue. There's just Swahili and English. And so we know Swahili is not a people. It's just a language. So I think the clamp down on African languages outside South Africa has really killed the spiritual. It has killed the culture. As a result, it has killed the spirituality.
The culture and the language create the spirituality, and that is something that I believe, I don't know if it was Dr. Ben or Dr. John Henrik Clarke who said that religion is the deification of a people's culture. So people have a culture and they have a language, and they deify that culture and that language, and that's what becomes their religion. And I think that when you are cut off from your language and you're cut off from your culture, the religion that you get, or that we got as Black peoples, was something that wasn't our own. Now, this is not a rant. This is not a conversation about whether there is or is not a divine essence, energy as part of the universe. That's not what the question is, because if you guys have seen my content before, you'll know that I'm a pantheist. I'm not an atheist. So this is not me saying, oh, there is no God. But this is me saying that the way in which, quote unquote, God is viewed needs to be revised. It needs to be looked at by other people. And I don't think any people have a monopoly on what God is or isn't. I think that if this thing is limitless, if this thing that they call God is limitless, then it should be able to be accessed from anywhere. This energy, this divine, should be able to be accessed via Hinduism, via Christianity, via African spirituality, via Sikhism, via Judaism, via Islam. It should be able to be accessed anywhere because it is limitless. When people attempt to limit what this essence is and package it and give it to you only in this package, and the only way in which you can contact it is via this package, for me, they lied to you. They lied. And I think a lot of Black people have been lied to when it comes to African spirituality. I think when it comes to African spirituality, we've been sold a movie version of voodoo dolls that you stick pins in to do certain things to other people. And it's a shame that even Africans on the continent were removed from their spiritual systems via colonization. You see, a lot of the stuff that happened in the diaspora also happened on the continent, just a little bit differently. And I think a lot of Africans were removed from their spiritual systems. And even in Nigeria now, they've got one of the biggest statues of, quote unquote, Jesus Christ in Nigeria right now. So Nigeria is either like a Muslim or Christian nation. And I just think that African spirituality is a more holistic way of viewing what the quote unquote all is. What do you think, Jesse? I could talk about this for hours.
When you said that religion is the deification of a culture,
Yeah.
what popped to my mind is Islamic dress.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that what we perceive as Islamic dress, I think it's called a kameez, is literally just like a cultural piece of attire from a certain part of the world.
Yeah.
Where it's very hot.
Yeah. Because that's what they wore culturally.
Yeah, because it's not too
even the hijab is a cultural dress.
Yeah. It's nothing to do with religion.
I mean, they say you should dress modest and cover your hair, but you know, when you see just the eyes or you know whatever, that's all cultural. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, religion is a deification of a people's culture. So I think people need to kind of be mindful of the cultures in which they are taking on. And I will say it, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. They didn't get the beginning right, guys. Right? These Abrahamic religions never got the beginning right. They told you Adam and Eve were the first human beings. They lied to you. They lied. And not only did they lie in the scripture, they lied in the visual representations of it. In the visual representations of Adam and Eve, we get two white people running around in the jungle. That's what we get from the visual representations. Two white people running around in the jungle. Who are these people when the first people were African? When genetically, Africans gave birth to the Asian, the white people, the Samoan, everyone was given birth to by the African. The African and African man and African woman were the mother and father of civilization. But now the children, your grandchildren, are coming back to you saying, hey, in the beginning there was, could you imagine if I went back to my granddad and said, Granddad, you see in the beginning, you'd be like, son, what do you know about the beginning? And I say, actually, Granddad, in the beginning, there was, he knows, he's closer to the beginning than I am. So how the hell is he going to take my word for what the beginning is? And in the beginning, I don't even mention him. I don't even mention my great granddad in the beginning. I mentioned some other folks. He's going to be like, yo, you're taking the mickey out of me. But hey, that's what we get.
There's a comment from John Tyson. He says, who said Adam and Eve were white?
The names said they were white. Whose name is Adam and whose name is Eve? If I said to you the first man's name was Kim Jong-un, we know who the first man is, because with language comes culture, with culture comes people. We know who the first man would be if his name is Kim Jong-un, just like we know who the first man would be if we said his name's Adam. Just like if we was to call the first man Mwadaba, we know who that would be. It's me just taking a mickey. But I'm just saying, if it was a South African clique from the Koshan people, we would know that's the people who it is. You can't use a name and superimpose it on a people who didn't even have those names and expect to tell the truth. You're not telling me the truth. And I'm saying, categorically, these religions are not telling the truth. They are a version that somebody chose to come up with to make sense of things that they didn't know at the time. So what they done, I'm a script writer myself, they put themselves as the main characters. That's what they done. Everyone does it when they write their scripts. They put themselves as the main characters. Why would Arabs put black people as the main characters? Why would Europeans put black people as the main characters? They put themselves as the main characters because, you know, it's their story. That's where it was written. That's who it was written for. They weren't going to put Nwanbele and Nwandibi in there. They weren't going to do that. Why would they? But that's the truth. Next video, please, Jesse. Last one.
Of the lady, yeah?
Yeah. From
Okay,
Dr. Kanye
here we
Seeley.
go.
Through and through. So I'm just like, because I told I was raised Catholic through and through. I even went to Catholic schools. Then I became born again. Now I know the Bible through and through. So I'm just like, that's Jesus now. For Christians will know, but I'm helping those who are not. He came that we might have life and have it in abundance. My sister. After that abundance, the Congolese faced Leopold for over 100 years as a private Belgian colony. who halved the population by the terror he unleashed on them, cutting off hands from 3 or 4-year-olds in household because they were not meeting the rubber quota. They moved from there to be a Belgian colony. They moved from there to be under Mobutu's dictatorship. They moved from there to be what the Congo is today, plundered by the West, using 2 African countries, which I won't name on this show, to protect you. In South Africa, I would name them. Now, after he came that we might have life and have it in abundance, we moved through slavery as a continent. We moved from it to colonialism. I call it classical colonialism, when you had the colonial army, the colonial administrator. We moved from there to neo-colonialism, which is what we are suffering now. In Latin, neo means new, for the sake of your listeners, which is economic and cultural slavery, actually. Now, I don't know about you, but that verse bothered me a lot. Abundance, I'm struggling to see the abundance. And most people say, oh, it's because your leaders are corrupt, they steal too much. Who told you there's no theft by leaders in Asia, in America, and in the West? The difference is they're stealing for themselves. Here, the difference is our leaders are forced to open pathways for them to still benefit Europe and still benefit whoever. And if people say, no, that's not the truth, I always ask them, so show me, where's Sankara? Is he still alive? Is Lumumba still alive? Is Steve Biko still alive? Is Magufuli still alive? I mean, the list goes on. So
sorry, pause that, Jesse.
Those things bothered me.
Sorry.
And
because she mentioned some names there that people might not be familiar with. Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso. We've spoken about Burkina Faso a few times on this show, and Ibrahim Traore and what he's doing. They say that he's the reignited spirit of Thomas Sankara. People don't know who Thomas Sankara is when it comes to African people. Please look up who Thomas Sankara is. She mentioned Steve Biko. If you don't know who Steve Biko is, please look up Steve Biko. She mentioned Patrice Lumumba. If you don't know who Patrice Lumumba is, see Patrice Lumumba. All of these people wanted the best for their country, for African people, and essentially were taken out by the powers that be, unfortunately. But yeah, she just mentioned some names there, and I just wanted to let people, just tell people, look up Sankara, Biko, Lumumba, and yeah, well, let's continue.
So those things bothered me. And I think I had this question in my mind that says, what was Africa before Africa was Africa? Because remember, even the word Africa, we never gave ourselves. And we were never run as a single holistic continent, as I say. We had variant political systems in this continent. You had matriarchies, you had patrilinealities, not patriarchies. It's not the same thing. We can flag it also, can come back to it as a question. There's a fundamental difference between patriarchy and patrilineality.
Do you think I succeeded in making white people uncomfortable?
No. No, not at all. But mainly because white people don't watch your.
No, they will. Some white people do. I've got white people that watch me.
No.
After that whole thing of, black people are here to make white people comfortable, I was just like, listen, bro, I don't have a problem with white people. I don't hate white people. I work with white people, but I'm not there to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm not your Negro. What was the name of the film? The something of the magical Negroes.
I don't know.
Like what? To make you feel comfortable? Like what?
Yeah.
Like that's not what black people are here for. We're all human beings on the face of this earth, and we should all, be able to live and do our own thing. But listen, man, I don't know what Hollywood's doing with that movie. And so my thing is, you're not going to try and tell me to make white people feel comfortable. It's just not going to happen. As a matter of fact, I talk to white people all the time. Don't have a problem with them. And I think sometimes I do make them a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm actually okay with that because that's just who I am.
So I'm a bit confused.
Go on.
Because we all know that you hate black women. And that's been your thing. But today you're attacking white people as well. Who are you befriending?
I'm not.
Did you ostracize the Muslims, the black women, and now the entire white race?
I don't hate anyone, bro. This is the thing. Like, I can have conversations with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just think people should be able to have conversations with everyone And no one needs to hate anyone, but you can be honest. And obviously, sometimes people will clash and blah blah blah. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit. I think I'm like 35% troll as well, and DNA.
Yeah, I can tell by your head shape.
Yeah, I think I'm 35% troll, and so I'm okay with uncomfortable conversations. A lot of people aren't okay with uncomfortable conversations. I've always been okay with uncomfortable conversations. And I think the only way in which conversations move forward is for people to get a little bit uncomfortable. So sometimes, I make Black women feel uncomfortable, Jesse. Do you know what I'm saying? That's because I'm trying to move a conversation forward to somewhere. Do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I'll make white people uncomfortable. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I want to move a conversation forward. Sometimes I'll make Black men feel uncomfortable because I want to move a conversation forward. You know what I'm saying? Black men need to be the most uncomfortable, if I'm totally honest. Because a lot of the things I see from Black men are a bunch of bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a bunch of bullshit going on with Black men right now. And I think you guys need to be uncomfortable. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because a lot of the shit I'm seeing right now and a lot of the people that are being pushed out into the forefront as quote unquote real Black people, I'm just like, these people, like, seriously, Drake, like, what? Are you serious? Like, especially in the US and the UK, like, Black men are just, I'm not gonna lie, Black men are failing, bro. Like, I'm sorry, but it's just a personal point. You got me on a rant now. Black men are failing. I think Black people are they're not operating at full capacity mentally. A lot of them aren't. And a lot of people ain't gonna like me saying that, but like, when you know, I know who I am to some degree, and I know from where I came, and no one can't really sell me a story and make me do some dumb-ish because I know from where I came. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I can work with people, talk to people, but I'm not going to do like dumb-ish. I'm not going to be like waving guns and trying to kill other Black people and like just being the most coonish type. And I don't even use that word. I even hate that word, coon. But I think a lot of these modern day Black people who people think are real are the modern day coons, Jesse. Like, the rappers,
100%.
They're literal coons, bro. Like, they will literally talk about killing other Black people for white people.
They're more actors than rappers nowadays.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, man. A lot of these people that people put out there,
that we
deify, yeah, are actual coons, bro. Like, oh, because he sold so many packs and he murdered this many people and he was real on the street. Show the fuck what? He killed some Black people. Great. Fantastic. You killed some Black folks.
Wow, you're the American police.
Wow, you're the man. Well done. Pat yourself on the back. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what? That's what real is. Like, and I just think, sorry, I'm on a rant, but Black people, so many Black people who deify these types of men are so fucking sad to me. I'm so sorry. That's what, like, what did you say to me earlier on, Jesse? That's why I ain't got no friends.
I've just never seen you another person other than myself. I don't believe. I don't believe you have any friends. I don't believe.
But I got a very big clan though. That's the thing. But we
about clan.
We move in silence.
Do you know? Now this isn't a fact. It's a saying.
Go on.
Do you know the only thing that separates a cult from a religion?
Numbers?
No.
Power?
No. I'll tell you.
Go on.
It's time.
Time.
Any cult, given the time to flourish,
to grow,
will become a religion.
That's true. I believe that.
Something on Netflix about
at some point in time, I'll hope my clan become a religion, but not like those religions, because we got networks. But then that's a whole nother conversation for another day, because people say that I'm part of a secret society because people are ignorant.
We wouldn't accept you in our society.
We
would never accept you in our society.
But yeah, guys, stop deifying all of these dumbasses because you're making dumb people famous. Okay? You're making dumb people famous who have two brain cells to rub together. You talk about being real, bruv. And they talk about being real and killing other Black people and wearing, I don't know, shiny teeth and walking with their pants below their asses and talking about how real they are because they used to bang guns on road, bruv. You get me?
That's right.
So yeah, guys, listen.
Yes.
I think it's time to wrap up now. Thank you all for tuning in. Have we got any comments before we leave, though, Jesse?
There were some good ones, but they've gone. Mr. Dover, Ben.
Oh, did he do that?
Yeah, he said the crescent, moon, and star are from the Baphomet.
Really?
As above, so below. Possibly. That's what he said. I don't know. Harry Fashion said, "No, sorry, you failed. I'm white." That was response regards to you making white people feel
uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, you didn't. You did poor job.
Maybe next week.
Yeah. Tuchel said you can't generalize all said rappers because all do not rap about violence and committing homicides. Shake my head.
Yeah, that's well, if the cap fits, you wear it. Do you know what I mean?
That's right. But let's go home, so it's getting late.
Yeah, it's getting late. Guys, listen, thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream today. Before we leave, Jess, do you have any final thoughts?
I got some final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Old proverb from my motherland.
Of course.
It's about unity. And
Go
the
for
proverb is that one hand can't clap. We're in the stream right there.
Catch you on the flip side, folks.